Are you searching for a meaningful Mother's Day gift? A gift that goes beyond the ordinary, one that truly touches the heart? Well, this year, you can let hope grow by donating to n-Lorem to support nano-rare patients in honor of a mother in your life. With your donation, n-Lorem will send a beautiful Mother's Day card with a personalized message directly to your loved one. But that's not all. As a special bonus this year, n-Lorem is including a decorative wildflower seed packet so that your loved one can plant the seeds of hope directly at home, watching as they bloom into a beautiful reminder of your love and support. Mother's Day is just around the corner, so don't wait. Visit n-Lorem.org today to make your donation and order your Let Hope Grow Mother's Day card and seed packet. n-Lorem, bringing hope and potential help to nano-rare patients and honoring the mothers who inspire us every day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stan Crook. I'm Chairman and CEO of n-Lorem, and I'm your host for the n-Lorem podcast series, a podcast series that focused exclusively on addressing the needs of patients and families with nano-rare mutations. And today, we have a very special guest, Zoe Hummel, who is a mother of one of our patients. Zoe, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, I'm delighted to have you. And I should begin by thanking you and Clayton for organizing the opportunity for me to make the show. I actually got to throw out the first pitch for the Yankees spring training game in Tampa, thanks to Zoe and Clayton. And I would say that I was quite a star. I threw a real strike.
I think you totally did. A real strike for sure. You did great.
Yeah, well, it's been some decades since I threw a ball. So, and I lost my baseball glove long ago. So Roseanne ordered a glove, which turned out to be like a 5-year-old's glove, but it didn't matter anyway. She runs screaming when I throw the ball. So I never got to practice until the morning of the game. So I got to throw a few. And I fortunately didn't fall off the mound or break my leg or do anything else dumb. And I didn't hit the mascot, which is a big plus.
You did really good. We've been to a lot of baseball games and we've seen a lot of first pitches, and you did great. You did excellent. Definitely be proud of yourself.
It was a real thrill. I mean, it is the Yankees, and to stand next to those uniforms and everything was pretty cool. And it was nice to share it with you guys in Mostyn and so on.
We were happy you were able to come down and do that. Yeah, for sure. It was our honor.
It was a lot of fun. And so Zoe and Clayton have a child, Mostyn. I'm told to think of Boston and say Mostyn, which Zoe and I have discussed is a Welsh name. And when I looked it up, it said moss-covered rock, but she tells me no, it's a fortress. So I accept
fortress
it.
in a field. So,
so I think let's begin where I guess this thing's always begin. Really, how did you and Clayton meet? And we don't need to get into details, but just how did you guys meet and get together?
Clayton and I actually went to the same high school together, and he asked me out when I was in my 11th grade year and he was in his 12th grade year. And I, of course, said no, absolutely not. And he continued to ask me out a couple times, and I just kept on telling him no. And then eventually I kind of broke down and he took me out, and I brought my brother with me, actually, which probably didn't go as he planned, but we did have a good time, but that was it. And then a couple of years later, he was in college, and he was coming back for summer school, and I was getting ready to go into college, and we ran into each other and we kind of hung out during the summer, but then again, never really went into anything more than that. And then 5 years later, we met out at a restaurant, and then I ran into him. I literally walked in the door, and there he was with some friends, and he looked at me and he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And then that was kind of it.
Well, he had gained a great deal of sophistication and poise by then, I'm sure.
He invited me on a date, and I thought, I don't know if I really want to date this guy. I'm not really sure if I'm really into him. And I said, I'm going to invite him to a jazz concert for the school that I was going to at University of South Florida. And I thought he's going to go and he's going to hate it. He's not going to like it at all. And I took him and we had the best time. And that was it. I literally called my best friend and I was like, I love this guy. Like, so that was it.
Well, it seems to have
Meant to
worked
be.
out pretty well.
Yes.
And speaking of jazz concerts, I think it would be interesting just to spend a minute or so on your musical history and experience. Um, nice cat.
I know he's very curious right now.
Well, and if my golden retriever were to come in, she would take over the conversation. So count your blessings. You don't have a loudmouth golden retriever, but you are a very accomplished violinist and have been in a number of productions and traveled with a lot of different groups, including some rock bands that I know a bit about, and other musical organizations. And just tell us a bit about how that how
Yeah.
how that felt, and it must have been pretty exciting to be in front of large crowds with kind of
Oh
the
my gosh.
of
Yeah.
it.
It was pretty incredible. The first I think the first time that I kind of gotten taken by it was when I was touring with Rod Stewart. And we were actually played a show here in Tampa.
Mhm.
And I remember being on stage and it was like as soon as you could hear the crowds just screaming and screaming, and as soon as they lifted up the curtains or the thing show started, I mean, I felt like I wanted to throw up, cough, like cry, laugh all at the same time. It was just the most incredible feeling I've ever had.
Mhm.
It was amazing.
Mhm. And you've done a wide range of music from, hard
Yeah.
rock to classical music and everything in between.
Yeah, I was classically trained. I started when I was 2 years old in Canada, and they have a big following called Suzuki method. It's a ear training. And my Sunday school teacher told my mom, "Hey, you should have your daughter play violin. She's got perfect pitch." So they started me at 2, and I actually started playing when I was 3 because when you're 2, you can't really play the violin. They just want to make sure you don't drop it. So what they gave me was a little cardboard box with a ruler and a chopstick. And I learned how to hold the violin through the songs without dropping it. And once I could do that, then I was ready for my actual real violin. So I went through all of those books and then I continued it on through high school, um, did all of my, encore, first chair kind of stuff and played in an orchestra. And then I tried to audition to get into school for violin, and I did. I ended up going to USF because I had a full scholarship there, and that just kind of led me to the right people. I just kind of kept on going through, and I did operas, and I started doing some Broadway stuff, and that led to more and more things. And then I was able to start getting into shows and touring with different artists, and being on stage and going on radio shows, and it was just really fun. I had a really, really good time.
People do it and they complain about it, but the truth is they love it most of the time, right?
Yeah,
And
I
touring,
feel very blessed, very blessed.
I would bet you do. And of course, you continue doing that even after you married. Right.
Yes. Yeah, I
And
was doing a lot of I was doing a lot of tours. And then right before we got married, I was supposed to go on tour with Brooks and Dunn and Alan Jackson. And it was a 6 month long tour. And Clayton was like, "Listen, you've been doing a lot of tours now. Maybe we should just get married and like maybe not do the tours anymore." So I said, "Okay, we'll get married." So we got married, and I still played the violin, but I just did more like
session
recordings and
musician.
session work, exactly, and corporate events and things like that. And I loved it. And I was hoping I was going to continue to do that, all throughout. But I feel, like I said, very blessed that I had all the opportunities that I did
Yeah.
to do the things that I was able to do.
And then Mostyn came along.
Yeah, I got
So
pregnant.
talk to us about Mostyn and his, birth and when it became apparent something wasn't quite right?
Yeah, so I had a great pregnancy. I was really, really dedicated with my diet and all the food I ate and everything. I wanted to make sure I was as healthy as I possibly could be. And I felt great. I remember when I got pregnant and I went to my doctor's appointment, he did the lab work and I was 32 at the time. He comes back in, he goes, man, he goes, your lab work looks great. You look like a 25-year-old. And I like I looked at Clayton, I was like, yeah, see, I told you I was so I was very proud of myself. And so I had a great pregnancy. I felt great. I didn't have any issues with anything. Had a natural birth with no and nothing. I didn't have an epidural or anything, like no medication. It was like only 6 hours. I mean, it was a really easy birth. When he came out, everything was great. We had no problems. We went home the next day, and he seemed like at the time that everything was going well. And as time progressed, I started to kind of notice some little things about him, just tiny things that were just a little bit off, they seemed like to me. Like he never crawled. He always like army walked first. And then he went from army walking to standing and walking. And it wasn't delayed. It just wasn't, it was like 14 months, which is not delayed, but it's just still not where you want to be. But I kept on talking to the pediatrician and I say, like his walking kind of looks a little bit odd. He's like, oh, it's okay. He just started. And then I'd say, he's not really saying a lot of words and he's kind of saying some just sounds and stuff. He said, well, he's a boy. Boys are always really, really slow. And I was like, okay. I mean, he had good eye contact. He smiled. He did all those little cute baby stuff, but I wasn't really sure if he was progressing the way he should have. And then about when he was about 2 years old is when I had him tested by our local organization here. It's called Early Steps. I don't know if they have that in other places, but it's called Early Steps. And basically they come out to your house, they evaluate your child and they think, do they need speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy? So a woman came out, she assessed him and she said, yeah, I think he could have all three of them. And I was like, oh, okay. So I told the pediatrician and he was like, no, I wouldn't worry about that. I think you're just getting yourself all stressed out. So I was like, okay, fine. So we just went along and, not really trying to push that thing, thinking that he was a boy and he was just going to eventually, he wasn't sick. He seemed like he was happy. He was eating well and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't really push it. And then at 3, I remember my mom actually watched Mostyn. And when we came home, because we had gone out, we went to the Bahamas just for the weekend. And when we came home, I remember she said to me, you need to take him to like a doctor. Please don't be mad at me for saying this to you, but you do need to have him tested by like a neurologist or something. There's something off. And I was like, okay, fine. So I took him to, I actually took him to another speech therapist because I was like, well, he's not talking. So maybe, so she evaluated him and she said, he absolutely needs speech, but he needs everything. And I was like, well, what do you mean he needs everything? She goes, and started asking me all these questions about my birth. Did he have the correct oxygen? She started like the questions she was asking me seemed like she was trying to say that he had cerebral palsy. So then I said, do you think he has cerebral palsy? She's like, well, I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you that. So I was like, she's like, I just think you need to go to another pediatrician and get him really evaluated. I called Clayton and said, listen, we need to get an appointment with somebody. So he got an appointment with a neurologist. And when we went to the neurology appointment, it was of somebody that Clayton had worked with because he's in the medical industry. We went to the neurologist and he evaluated him and he said that he has cerebral palsy. So we couldn't understand why he had cerebral palsy because like I said, his birth was great. We didn't think anything seemed to be off. So we scheduled him for an MRI, and when the MRI came back, it came back normal. So we were still kind of like, okay, so our kid has cerebral palsy and what else? What are we going to do now? So we eventually got him into speech and physical therapy and occupational therapy. And it was all under that diagnosis of cerebral palsy. And everything seemed to be going okay. He kind of seemed like he was maybe progressing a little bit. He was a developmental delay. So, his words were always a little bit off, and he was having a hard time, you know, with fine motor skills and stuff like that, but he seemed like he was getting better. And at that point, we were just like, okay, he seems like he's getting better. And I thought, well, you know, let's put him into school. So we put him in preschool. And I went to the preschool, and I stayed there, and I would go there during the day just because I felt kind of strange leaving him. I wasn't sure if they knew what was going on with him or anything like that. So they let me come to the school, which was great. And then eventually, like I said, he started to seem like he was getting better. And so now I would drop him off. And so everything was seeming to go a little bit better. And then we were going to put him into a Montessori school. And that was right before he turned 5. Or he actually was 5, sorry. Right around 5, we were going to put him in a Montessori. And we were really excited about it. And I had met with the school and everything else. And then on December 31st, 2016, he had his first grand mal seizure in the morning, and it came out of nowhere. And we had no idea what to do. I mean, I remember calling out to Clayton and saying, he's having a seizure. And I'm like, what do I do? He's like, put him on his side. So we put him on his side, called 911. And that's kind of that's kind of what happened before that.
Yeah. So let's stop there for just a minute. And
it's a really long discussion.
And it's a story that we hear frequently, and it's a really tough balance, right? Because mom and dad and grandma and grandpa are always the best observers, but they're also the most concerned. And good pediatricians will say all the things your good pediatrician said. He's a boy, he's in the normal range. If you could distill down to a single sentence or two the lessons that you think are important out of that first part of your journey.
I think if I knew what I knew now, I would tell somebody, listen, in your gut, if something feels wrong, you need to get it addressed, and you need to find out why it is what it is. You know, I should have, you know, everybody, taking them to get therapy and stuff like that, it's scary as a mom. You know, you think something's wrong with my child. But if I was blessed to have another child now, the minute I saw them not doing something they're supposed to be doing, I would take them to a specialist immediately and try to figure out why they weren't doing what they were doing. Yeah.
So bottom line is trust your instincts.
Trust your instincts. If you feel like something is wrong and something does not seem right, get the answers that you need until you feel like it's right. Yeah.
And, you know, from my perspective, a lot of this would be so much simpler for parents, pediatricians, and such a dramatic improvement in the world if we sequenced all of our newborns. And,
yes.
I mean, you'd have the information, and then you would have the option of doing what needed to be done. But if you had that information, you knew there was a mutation that might be a problem, your antenna, the antenna of the physician, and everyone else involved would have been at a different level. Right.
Totally. You could be way more prepared mentally, emotionally, and everything. Absolutely. Absolutely.
As an aside, one of our major goals at n-Lorem is to assure that genomic sequencing is incorporated into newborn evaluation protocols with appropriate safeguards. And there's now a significant lobbying effort going to drive that. And the fact that we're able to treat some of these patients is an important step. So now you've got seizures. And there's very little that's more frightening for a parent than to have that first seizure happen, right?
Oh yeah, it was terrifying.
Yeah, and the truth is, there's nothing you can do. I mean, other than wait it out, right?
Yep.
So now you're on high alert, and you went back to the pediatric neurologist, would be my guess, or
yeah, we called him that day. You know, we took him to the hospital, and they called him, and he put him on trilaptol. And we started on trileptal, and within a day he started developing a rash. So we called the neurologist and we said, hey, he's got a rash. He said, yeah, you got to stop. He can't be on that. So just immediately stop. Well, he didn't get his nighttime dose of that, and he immediately had another grand mal. So now we're really getting scared now, because now what are we going to do? So we called him again, and he put him on Keppra, and he said, hey, come to the office tomorrow. We need to do an EEG on him. Yeah, EEG, EEG, EKG. I always get those two confused, but EEG on him. So we took him to the his office, and they did an EEG on him, and for just a 15-minute one. And he came out, and he had a piece of paper, and he had a circle on one and a star on the other. And he says, okay, your son has got juvenile onset epilepsy. Can maybe go away by the time he's 8. It's nothing like you need to be too worried about. It's going to probably go away. And I looked at him, I said, well, okay, well, you circled that, but what's the star on that? Like, what's that from? He goes, oh, don't worry about that. That's really, really bad. Well, come to find out, he had the really bad one, which is Lennox-Gastaut syndrome. And he didn't mention it that day, but I remember reading it. And I remember kind of getting scared about that after I researched it. And yeah, it was just, so we didn't get diagnosed with that until a little bit later. It gets worse because the Keppra does not work, and he continues to have seizure after seizure after seizure. So now we're kind of flipping out. We're like not sure what to do. We had never been around like seizures before. We turned off all the lights in the house. We put caution tape on our front door. Like, I'm not kidding. We actually really did this. We turned off all the TVs. We like literally went like silent. We didn't want anybody to bother us. Nobody to knock on the door because he was having so many seizures. And during that time, I had already tried to get into Boston Children's Hospital, and that wasn't related to seizures. I was just trying to get into it because he got diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and I heard that they were really good with neurological stuff. And I thought, well, let's try to get there. Well, it was like a 6-month waiting list, and I was on a waiting list. So I didn't think we could actually get into Boston Children's. And I told Clayton, I was like, I don't know if we can try to see if we can get him there because we know it's really good. Clayton's like, okay, well, let me call around and see if I can find anybody that might know somebody up there. So he called one of his doctor friends, and he went to Boston, he went to Harvard, and he knew a lot of people around there. And Clayton was talking to him on the phone, and he's like, yeah, I've got this friend. He says, I've got this friend. He's a big philanthropist up there. His son has got a neurological problem, and he like made the wing over there at Boston Children's. He's like, I can tell you his name. He's like, but I don't know his phone number. He's like, I haven't talked to him in like 10 years. And Clayton's like, yeah, just give me his number and I'll find him. I'll try to figure out, and I'll connect you with him so you can maybe help us. And he's like, fine, let's do that. He's like, okay, wait, hold on, wait, what? And Clayton's like, what? He's like, you're not going to believe this. Right here on the desk, on my desk, in the middle of my desk is this letter from this guy. His number's right here. I haven't spoken to him in 10 years. He's like, I'm gonna call him right now. So he called him, and within, I'm not kidding, 10 minutes, Clayton had the head of neurology at Boston Children's emailing him saying, hey, can you be here in a week? We can get you in. So that was the mission. We're going to pack up everything. We're going to drive because we don't want to fly with him. We don't know how to deal with him with seizures. And we drive to Boston, and it's in January, and it's absolutely snowing like crazy, and it's black ice. And so on our mission there, they were taking my car, and it was an SUV, and it kept on losing the tire pressure kept on, coming out. So Clayton kept on having to, put air in the tires, and it kept on getting worse and worse. And we get to this one stretch of area, and we're I don't even know. I think we're about a day away from Boston, and we keep on trying to fill up the tires, and somebody had cut the hose of the air pressure thing for like 15 miles. It was crazy, and it was in the freezing snow, and he's trying to get this pressure. So we finally get to the dealership, and barely, like almost like with the rim, like not, hopefully not damaged. We're thinking hopefully the rim's not damaged. We get to the thing, they take off the tire. He says, put a new tire on there. Let's get going. The guy's like, listen, we're not going to be able to put a new tire on this thing. I said, this tire is not your problem. It's the rim. The rim is cracked. And we're like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, and I can't, he's like, I can give you like a smaller car, but I don't have anything that's going to be able to fit all the stuff that you need. So Clayton was like, all right, let's call the dealership in Boston, tell them what we need, that they'll have it there. And Clayton went to Home Depot and he buys Gorilla Glue and Gorilla duct tape, and he glued and duct taped the rim. And we drove the next day through there to Boston, to the dealership, got the new rim, got the thing, literally by just 5 minutes before our appointment, parked, gotten in there, and there we were at Boston Children's Hospital. So we made it.
Literally a long trip. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
And as I listen to it, I think about all the patients we deal with, and I think, as terrible as things were for you guys, you were unbelievably fortunate in some ways. Clayton was in the medical field. He had a friend who knew a friend, and suddenly you had an appointment that you couldn't get. And that, to me, is a part of what the problem. That
absolutely,
you shouldn't have to have a friend of a friend to get care for your child, right? I mean, that it shouldn't.
If we were stuck to try to find help here in Tampa or in Florida, well, first of all, at the time, the genetic mutation that Mostyn has was only on the Boston Children's epilepsy panel. It was not anywhere here in Florida. So we would have done the testing here and they would have never known what was wrong with them. And they weren't even getting it. So, I mean, yeah, it's really, really sad when you think about it, because we were very blessed. Like you said, we were very fortunate that we had that contact. Otherwise, I don't know where we would be or what we would have done.
So you end up at BCH, and they immediately ran, I assume, that panel of genetic tests that's still a tiny fraction of all the genes that we know cause it, and out of that came a real diagnosis of what the problem was. I guess.
Yeah, they told us that they wanted to do the genetic testing because epilepsy in general is either unknown, structural, or genetic. And we knew it wasn't structural because he had the MRIs done and everything seemed normal. So yeah, we did the genetic testing, and when it came back, he had 3 misspellings on 2 of them were on dominant genes, but they were not something that they felt like was an issue, because Clayton had one of them and I had the other one, and it was fine. I was fine. He was fine with no seizures. And then that KCNB1 is the one that they found, and it was not from me or from Clayton. It was like, as the genetic specialist at Boston Children's said, she said, Mostyn is just very unlucky. That's exactly what she said.
That's exactly the right word. One of what people don't understand is how complex that you have 6 billion genetic letters, and it isn't boxing. It's a illiterate medieval monk in a candlelit cloister copying each letter, and there are mistakes, and you have all kinds of systems to correct it. But we're all walking around with hundreds of millions of these mistakes, and Mostyn has the same number, and yet he has a bad one, and that's bad luck.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. When she said that, I was really taken by that, because I was thinking, like, here is like a genetic specialist and she's actually saying that. So it really, really struck me when I thought about it. It's like, here you have Mostyn and he has one gene that's causing everything that he is.
Actually, one nucleotide in one gene, one extra nucleotide mistake in 6 billion. So now you know all that.
Yeah.
and you have a diagnosis.
Mhm.
And I suppose the next step is to talk about what the gene does.
Okay.
If you want to just
Oh, what
tell.
the gene does?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a potassium channel, genetic gene KCMB1, and it has to do with excitability. And basically, yeah, I mean, why am I explaining this? You need to be explaining this.
It was a
This is
test.
not this is not my forte.
Uh, well, the fact is, we're electrical machines,
Mhm.
and 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 what our cells do is establish electric fields by keeping some charged particles out and some charged particles in, and we call those ions. And so those things are called ion channels, and this is potassium ion channel, and you can have too much and you can have too little. You have to have just the right amount. It's a Goldilocks kind of an affair for all of these ion channels. And so whether it's a mutation that causes it to be overly active or less active, you end up with electrical currents that are wrong, and seizures are a part of the syndrome that had happened there. And so, um, so you have a diagnosis. You understand now. Now you understand that there is a problem, and you can name it.
Yeah.
Um, and that's good, but it sort of the next sentence out of the physician's mouth probably was, and there's no specific treatment for this, that we're just going to have to
Right. Use
do the
medications.
best we can.
Yeah. And, when we were going through this with, he's gone through almost 17 anticonvulsants. So that means, in the 7 years he's had this, we've started a drug, realized it didn't work. Now, mind you, we might be adding another drug. So say he's on two now, and one of them now nothing's working. So you have to get off the drug, start a new drug, and there's all these different levels, and you're just going back and forth and back and forth. And it really feels like the doctors, they don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work. And they're like almost just throwing darts and like, okay, let's try this drug. And we're like, okay, well, why do we think this would be a good one? And for Mostyn's situation, the potassium channel thing, unfortunately, there is no anticonvulsant that's specific for potassium channel. There was one, and they had to take it off the market because it turned the people blue. So there hasn't been another one. So we're really working with a lot of drugs that have, like, maybe that deal with sodium channels or other types of epilepsy, not potassium. So it's really been hard. He's right now he's on 3 anticonvulsants, and he still has seizures almost every day. I mean, it's crazy, and it's sad. It's really sad watching, somebody that you care about go up and down on these medications, because it doesn't make them feel good.
No. And you know that the seizures are going to make the developmental delays worse, and I'm sure everyone told you that.
He's declined so much, so much. I tell people, I'm like, if I showed you videos of him when he first started having seizures, and I showed you a video of him when he was 3 years into seizures, and then in 5 years, and then now 7 years, like, you would see the decline. It's awful. His verbal ability, his walking ability, everything about him. He's happy. We try our best to keep him super happy. And, he's got the most beautiful, like, sweet heart, and he loves people. But yeah, he's absolutely declining. He's declining. And
And
I don't know when the next seizure, I don't want to say that. I don't know when the next seizure is going to kill him, to be honest with you. That's the truth. Sorry.
this is a good reason to cry. Right?
Yeah.
So just a couple of more thoughts about emotions for a minute. The response to illness is pretty universal. It's first fear, and then anger at the unfairness of it all.
Yeah.
And here you have, and you actually understand how unbelievably unfair it is. So how have you and Clayton managed through that emotional thicket of hope, just feeling terrified, angry, no place to put your anger? Who can we blame? Nobody. It's just bad luck. How do you work your way through all that to a place where you can function and have a constructive life?
I think like most importantly is our faith. We have the same belief. And then so I think that's gotten us through a lot of those trials and tribulations and stuff. But I also think, Clayton is so incredible about not just settling in. He's about taking action. And, we both try to do our best to research and really figure out what's the possibility? What can we do? Like, we have to be able to do something. There's got to be something you can do, right? We got to figure out what can we do? And I think those are the things that have really helped us, faith and just trying to take action and try to figure out what else we can do, find something, whatever.
So work your way through it, find a way to convert it to steps that you can take. Whether
Yeah.
any of them work, at least you're doing your best, and you know that, and it
And
gives you
it's definitely not, yeah, and it's definitely not easy. Like, it's not easy at all. It's really been challenging. It's very, very hard. There's a lot of times where we feel extremely defeated.
Mhm.
But
So now you've got a diagnosis. You know there's no specific treatment. You know that there's research going on and genetic sequencing is happening and lots of things are going on. And you spend your time now, instead of making music, instead of enjoying life as you once did, becoming a scientist
yeah,
and a
I,
geneticist, right?
yeah, well, yeah, Clayton really is the researcher on all that kind of stuff. I basically,
Take
the
care.
minute once Mostyn started having seizures, I just said I've got to take care of him full time.
So
So
life changed.
life changed a lot. Yeah,
Everything
everything
stopped.
changed.
And
Everything just,
all
and I
the
really felt like I lost myself, to be honest with you, like as a person, because the violin was really important to me. But yeah, it was a really challenging time in the very beginning when all of this went down because I think Clayton felt the same way too. I mean, we had to do things differently, a lot differently, not just a little differently, a lot differently. And yeah, it was extremely overwhelming, you know.
and so um now the next step is to find somebody who might be able to help, right?
Yeah, so Clayton had, like I said, he was all into the genetic stuff, and he asked a couple of the doctors there about CRISPR and things like that, and he was trying to figure out maybe since we know it was a gene thing, maybe there was something, and we did find a company, and we thought the first time they met us, they were like, "Oh, we're going to be able to cure your son. We can cure him," and I was like, okay. I mean, it was like, you telling me that. I mean, I actually, when they told me that, I remember I burst into tears because I couldn't believe somebody was actually going to say that to me and tell me that they could do that. So we had a lot of hope at that point, and we started the process. But it was really expensive. We had to pay for it. I mean, do you want to know how much they wanted?
I'm a I'm appalled that anyone would ever do something like that, but I know it happens all the time. And I think it's
Yeah,
really important to hear. I would
yeah.
assume more than $1 million would be my guess.
Yeah, so they gave us like a plan and they told us the steps that we needed to take. And that basically for them to be able to do what they needed to do to help Mostyn, that it would be $4 million.
That's you know how that disgusts me. You know
It's,
how infuriating I find that. One, that there's a company that would do it. Two, that they would give you the false hope of telling they can cure something they know nothing about, and then want $4 million from you.
yeah,
Um,
and is so Clayton is like, what we need to like start selling things and, he's tried, I mean, we were thinking of how we raise money. I mean, we were trying to do whatever we could to start this thing because we wanted this just to get going. And I mean, it was just really, really stressful. And then that company, they were working on it. They weren't doing anything. They ran his genes, and then we kept on checking in with them to see if anything was going on. We started like an initial payment with them, and then a company came in and bought that company out. And when that happened, they didn't want to be a part of helping Mostyn. Yeah.
They didn't
So
want to be a part of helping because they knew they couldn't.
They couldn't probably. And they called us and they said, we can't do anything for your son. They're like, we're sorry, we can't do anything for your son. So then I was like really, really devastated.
What was the time?
Oh, they told me it had been like almost a year had gone by. So we were, like I said, we were
have
trying
a year of hope. You're trying to find ways, give them more money.
Yeah.
And then somebody sane comes along and says, hey, they haven't been telling you the truth, basically.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to help you at all.
So, and this is the story we hear. And so I suppose what sort of lesson do you take from that you think would be worth sharing with folks?
Oh man. Don't believe everything that you hear. I don't know. I mean, no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we had so much hope and it was really, really defeated. I don't even, I mean, I guess if I was going to tell somebody a lesson with regards to that situation is, I'm going to say this because I think this is a good thing. It's okay. It's going to be okay. And let's try again. That's okay. It's going to be okay. Let's try again. And see if we can find something else.
So now n-Lorem comes along.
Well, the n-Lorem thing, honestly, if we hadn't have gone with this other company, we wouldn't have met a nice man that worked for that company that told us about n-Lorem. Mm-hmm. And so it all kind of worked together, to be honest. And
how much financial information did n-Lorem ask about you?
So we talked in the beginning, we had an interview. It wasn't with you, it was with Frank Bennett. Mm-hmm. And he met us. And I remember he was asking us some questions about Mostyn. He met Mostyn. And then at the very end, Clayton says, well, let us know what we need to start to like get, to give you money and stuff. And he said, oh, no. No, this is not, we're not going to make you pay for anything. This is for free. And I just burst into tears. I couldn't believe it because here we're like trying to figure out how to like refinance our house and like do all these things, try to help our son. And now this company is going to try to help him and they're not going to charge us anything for it. It was like a miracle, to be honest.
I think if I were, and I think your lesson is a good one, which is get to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and keep trying. But I think if someone promises a cure, that's a person to avoid.
Yeah.
I'm guarantee you've gotten no promises from n-Lorem other than we'll do our best.
Yeah, no, I know.
And I think if someone asks you to pay, you really have to ask why. And it may be legitimate, but I don't really think parents should have to pay for the care for their children. That should be something that we find a way to do as a society. And so, of course, we at n-Lorem are unwilling to accept financial information about families who apply. We don't have a place on the form for it. You and Clayton have been generous in trying to help us raise money, and we find that. But that's a very different proposition from charging somebody to making promises.
Well, we do that because we are so honored that, you guys are wanting to do this to not just for Mostyn, but for all these other children. And because these families, they get to a point where they don't have hope. They have a child that has got something that nobody else has. And most doctors just say, okay, well, I don't know what I can do. I can medicate them. I can, you can do therapy. You can, hey, one doctor wanted to cut Mostyn's brain in half. He thought that was going to help. And I mean, it's so much stuff. And you just look at your life and you're thinking, is this going to be it? Like, is this going to be it? And so we believe in everything that n-Lorem does. And like I said, we're honored to be a part of this because we believe in what you guys are doing for other families and other children. And it's going to help change the world. I really will, because these kids are beautiful people and they deserve to be able to have a chance,
One last question. You and Mostyn and Clayton came to our first colloquium. I can now pronounce that word.
I can't.
Well, we'll call the meeting. Yeah. That must have been a tough trip. I mean, Mostyn's a happy boy, and he loves baseball, of course, and he likes, knocking things out of your hand, which is fun.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Airplane.
It's a little stinker.
Yeah. How'd you manage that?
Yeah, that was a little bit stressful because, we wanted to make sure, because it was a professional meeting. So we wanted to make sure that Mostyn was at his best behavior, but Mostyn is Mostyn. So, we've gotten really good at kind of trying to maintain him the best that we can. We know the things that he likes and try to keep him entertained. Plus he loves people. And so he did great. I mean, we kind of go into a room and we kind of scout it out and we go, okay, that corner over there is where we need to go. We're going to put him over there because we know nobody will be behind him, nobody will be beside him, and then we can keep him kind of contained. So once we do that, it does help. But he does get a few drinks, or he does get some plates of food every once in a while.
He was one of the stars of the meeting. His mom, did okay too by playing violin at our reception. So, I know that this has been not altogether fun for you, but I think our listeners will appreciate your sharing the story and some of the basic lessons that you've learned. And I think to sum up, the most important basic lesson is you just have to keep trying.
You have to keep trying. Yeah, you have to just keep trying. Go forward.
Yep.
Somewhere out there, there's a Stan.
There's an n-Lorem.
There's an n-Lorem for sure.
Anything else that I haven't asked, or any other comment that you'd like to make before we call it a day?
No, I mean, nothing. I mean, we're honored to be a part of this group, and we're really looking forward to the future.
We're doing our best, and I wish I could promise a positive outcome. I can't.
I know, but we're happy that he's even accepted. So we're really excited.
Wonderful to chat with you again, and thanks again for bringing my baseball dreams to a fruition where I got to play with the Yankees for a pitch.
Awesome.
Okay, and give Mostyn a kiss for me. You can.
I absolutely
bother
will.
with Clayton. Just give Mostyn a kiss. Okay.
And Mostyn will give you a big fist bump and probably knock a plate of food over. But
he's done that before. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. All right.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
n-Lorem is a nonprofit committed to discovering and providing personalized experimental treatments for free for life to patients with genetic diseases that affect 1 to 30 patients worldwide, referred to by n-Lorem as nano-rare. Many of these patients progress and die without ever achieving a diagnosis. This is where n-Lorem comes in. They do the impossible by providing hope, and for those that they can help, free lifetime treatment. For more information about n-Lorem or today's episode, visit n-Lorem.org. Any questions can be sent into podcast@n-Lorem.org. Search n-Lorem on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook to connect with us. This video is hosted by Dr. Stan Crook and produced with the help of the following professionals. Thank you for watching.